Welcome to Dylan's Jams. Today we have a very special guest on our show, Andy Nicholes. Take it away.
Hi, Dylan. Hey, that's a good song, too. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Why don't you introduce yourself for our audience?
Well, my name is Andy Nicholes, and I am a teacher and podcaster in Parsippany, New Jersey. I teach audiovisual production, TV, film, all that good stuff, and starting this year, I'm teaching an audio engineering course. So this whole setup is a very cool vibe. And listen, you're doing what you want to do, and you talked about it all last year, and here I am watching you do it. And
and you're on it now too.
And I'm on it. And thanks for having me to come on down here. This is a cool little setup here in this nice little small room.
Yeah, it's a great spot. So I have you on today to talk about the Beatles.
You do, yeah. You have your hour show, and we talked about a couple topics that we could do a deep dive with. And, it's weird being the guest because I'm used to doing the podcasting.
You are. So talk a little about your podcast.
Yeah, so I'm a co-host of a Paul McCartney solo podcast called Two Legs, and that's a take on Paul McCartney's song Three Legs, which is on his 1971 album Ram. So with me and my co-host Tom Hunyadi, who is based in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yep.
That show has been going on since 2016.
Wow.
And it was an audio-only show then. I joined in 2019 when his cousin left. He needed a co-host. I had my own show that was called Backwards Traveler. He found me. He's like, look, I need a co-host. Would you be interested in doing this? I said, sure. What do you about thinking, taking it into, a video medium and using YouTube? So we use YouTube as a podcast, but only as a platform.
Yeah.
We still are traditional podcasters with topics and shows, and we just use the YouTube medium as a way to get out there to reach more people.
And so people can find you on YouTube. Are you also on other platforms?
We are on every platform. So we have a subscription with Podbean, which is a great service because we can upload the audio recording of our podcast to that site, and then it pushes it out to everywhere. Alexa, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, which we now are on, thanks to some help from you. But they didn't like anything but MP3s, as I learned, which is why last year you were like, I don't see all your shows, because I had to make them all MP3s, not MP4As. So,
all right.
Yeah, it's good. It's been a very successful podcast. I've been blessed to meet a lot of great people, travel the country.
I mean, you've been to Beatles Fest now. You've spoken at Beatles Fest a few times too.
As a featured panelist and guest at the Beatles Fest in New York and Chicago 2 years in a row.
That's very impressive.
So it's a hobby and a passionate one, and I like to keep church and state separate. But sometimes they blend in between, especially now with the course I'm teaching. But I've enjoyed the podcast. It's once a week, and we try to keep it fresh and engaging. And this week is
it's a
big week in the Beatles world because we've got the last Beatles song coming out.
We do
on Thursday at 9 a.m. But who's counting?
Exactly. How many sleeps to the song?
4 now.
4 sleeps. So why don't you talk a little about the song? I mean, because you know more about it than me. Obviously, I mean, I have read a lot about it.
Yeah, you have a above average knowledge of the Beatles, and
I like to think so, but I mean, nowhere near as much as you. But I mean,
I lived over there for 2 years.
True, you did. I mean, you got your master's over there, right?
I did, and I did exactly what you're doing now. There, I had my own show at Liverpool Hope University, which was on, I think, 1310. It was on, but I did it for the year and change that I was there.
Nice.
I was there 2 years, but I only did the show 1. But I got my experience in college radio. Obviously, it was post-grad.
Yeah.
But very similar setup. But, I spent 2 years in Liverpool studying all this stuff. But so the song is Now and Then, and it's got a really complex, convoluted history because it started life as a John Lennon demo when he was kind of on his kind of 5-year break. John stopped kind of making music there for a while in the late 70s to raise his son.
Got it.
And he kind of disappeared for a while. But he would still stay at home in the Dakota, which is on the Upper West Side of New York, and hammer away at demos, guitars, things that are really not really great quality, right?
Yeah.
He would just put a boombox recorder on top of his piano and play.
To cassette.
To a cassette. So when he passed, about 15 years later, when the Beatles got together, to reunite for the anthology project, Yoko Ono handed Paul McCartney a cassette of a couple of demos.
Yeah.
One of them was Free as a Bird, one of them was Real Love, and one of them was Now and Then. And the problem that the producer, and you would appreciate this as an audio guy, he could not separate it because everything was lumped on one track.
Onto one mono cassette recording.
Really tough for 1990s technology to do that. It was a miracle that Jeff Lynne could even do what he did with Free as a Bird and Real Love.
And those two tracks sound really good.
Right. So that was for 1994-5 technology to be able to work that track in and add, the other Beatles, and George was still alive then to do it, was pretty impressive. So they took a stab at Now and Then, but the quality of that recording was so bad The TV was on in the background too. There was other things going on that were not present on the other two demos, so they were a little more workable. So they scrapped it. They tried it for a little bit, and George did add some guitar work to it. That's why this is able to be done now. So fast forward, another 18 years, Peter Jackson, the director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and other great films, kind of came up with the technology to isolate things. And you heard this if you watch the Get Back documentary, which dropped on Disney Plus in November of 2021. You saw some really cool things through this technology, which he has dubbed called MAL, and that stands for Machine Assisted Learning. And it's basically AI, and it learns what things are to separate. It's not artificial at all. It is artificial, but not. People think, oh, a new Beatles song, it's going to be totally. No, it's not. Yeah,
it's using existing tracks, but just splitting them up
and
into their components.
learning what is what, right? Yeah. So in that film, there was a recording of a conversation between John and Paul with a microphone that was on, running in a cafeteria.
Wow.
Right, with all this stuff going on, right?
Yeah, lots of noise, lots of background noise.
And he was able to use Mal to separate all that, and you hear like an 8-minute conversation between John and Paul through that technology, which was just so
pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
I mean, I've seen the documentary, and you can't really tell in it that it's like from archival audio from a terrible mic. You can really hear their voices very clearly, which is very impressive. And that technology has only improved over time.
It's changing by the day, by the week. So that happened. And I think once that happened, the Beatles camp was like, wow, we could do some really cool stuff with the rest of our collections if we want to remix things. I mean, Giles Martin, of course, the son of George Martin, has been kind of remixing
dutifully
the Beatles album.
Like, tons of the content has been remixed at this point.
Since 2017, you've got Sgt. Pepper, you've got the White Album, you've got Abbey Road, which sonically was a great album to try to improve anyway. But he's taking the ability of using, so between Giles Martin and Peter Jackson, you've got two talented people.
Yeah, using a lot of technology.
I mean, and so what Giles is doing is basically taking like a mono mix and a stereo mix and making a new mix out of that.
It's pretty impressive technology.
So so that's what. So obviously the classic kind of the rich period of the Beatles has been done already. Now they're going to kind of work their way backwards and do this with the older tracks, like from '62, 3, 4, 5,
from the Red and Blue albums.
Right, which coincides with the release. So to hear this technology, especially on music that was all recorded and mixed and produced for mono, is going to be very interesting because
there's less material to work with.
Right, everything. This music was made and to be heard in mono.
Yeah,
got to remember 1960s and 70s, right?
Stereo was just starting to become a thing.
Most people listen to music through a transistor radio in their car, on the beach.
Single speaker.
One speaker.
Yeah.
So the music was they felt that if you spaced it out, you were cheapening it.
Yeah.
Why am I hearing vocals on one side
and not the other?
And on another? Yeah. They thought it was kind of cheaper. Stereo,
it got caught on eventually.
I mean, the Beatles prepared all their albums, including of the White Album, to be mixed in mono.
I didn't even know that.
Every album was, mono went first. Huh. Stereo mixes came after the fact, especially, from Pepper.
Yeah.
Mono, Mystery Tour, White Album. Mono first, that's what the Beatles supervised, and then the Beatles would be done with it, and George Martin
would go and do stereo.
Would go and mix it for stereo. And then obviously Abbey Road and Let It Be were stereo. Mono was totally phased out by that point. So it's to tie it back to now and then, and a recording that started in 1977 was worked on in 94, 95, scrapped, and now almost 30 years later, it comes back again with two surviving Beatles to add their input to it and have still things from George Harrison and still have John Lennon on there. Now, as these guys are kind of at the end of their life, is pretty special and pretty magical. It's
a once in a lifetime sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be great. It's a pretty it's not a poppy song. It's a very song that's it has a lot of emotion. It's going to have a lot of emotion in it. It's going to have Paul singing on it, so what it is. And this is something that Paul wanted to finish because he knew about it, and a lot of people are reading into the lyrics. Are they talking about each other? You can't really get into that, but from a production tech point of view, it's really nice to see this happen. I mean, it's for now. I mean, in 2023, it could have never. Yeah. And it only leaked about 6 months ago in June.
Got it.
When Paul kind of dropped, we finished it. And then it was the world's worst kept secret then. Mm-hmm. Because we knew that was the song, because we knew that was the song they worked on in the 90s. It was the
one that never got finished.
We knew that's what it was going to be.
Yeah.
So the fact that and they're maximizing it now, because what do you do with it? Okay, you can't release it as a single.
No.
So they chose to put this on a revamped edition of the Red and the Blue albums.
Yeah, which are an anthology of singles and other songs.
Big hits, but also album cuts. And for the kind of novice listener, is the entryway point for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's where a lot of the classic Beatles, like older Beatles songs, are on.
Yeah, and the deep cuts, and those albums were released in 1973. Really, and the story about them is a whole other show, but they had to come out basically because there was, back in the day, they used to actually have albums for sale on TV.
Got it. Okay.
And some bootlegger put together like a great, because up to that point there was no Beatles greatest hits.
Yeah.
It's hard to envision a world of that now, 50 years later.
Exactly. When everyone has their greatest hits album.
Right, or playlist or whatever.
Something.
Right.
Yeah.
So that album comes out and it was called Alpha Omega. And it was like, get all the Beatles hits on these 4 LPs. And it was sold.
Wow.
So Alan Klein, their then manager, who was on the way out the door, was like, look, we have to combat this. We cannot have these songs going out, mail order, and people, I actually have a copy of it because it's pretty cool just to have it.
It's something from history.
But they had to squash it. So this was a response to a bootleg thing. That's why the Red and the Blues came out. And I can't tell you, I have a lot of friends. I'm 42, right?
Yeah.
So I'm obviously second generation. So, but a lot of friends who were a little older than me were like 15, 16 when those albums came out.
Yeah,
or
so
whatever.
I guess it was a big thing.
It was a big entry point for them.
Yeah.
They discovered that was their gateway drug. To put pun intended. That was the one those were the albums that got them hooked.
Yeah.
So that became a fabric of everybody's collection, and now they're being expanded with extra tracks.
Yeah.
It's not just a straight remix.
Okay.
You're getting a third disc of of material from said periods on there.
Alternate takes or
no, not alternate takes. Like, so you're getting like, so if the Red album had 35 tracks or 30 tracks,
something like that,
and now it's gonna have like 48.
Oh, cool.
So they're picking more tracks to go to on each thing.
So it's sort of like it's kind of like they're giving it the special deluxe treatment in a way.
They are. And you're getting this new technology that I just talked about.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear the earlier stuff because we've heard the new mixes of the later period, the Blue Album, 67.
Off of that like collector's box from 2012, I think, right? 2017.
Which one?
The 2010s collector's box out of the Master Collection or whatever it was called.
You mean the
Past Masters?
Oh, that's Past Masters is a totally separate thing. That's from 2009.
Yeah.
Those were albums that just kind of collected all the singles and put them on an album. No, the new mixes that are going to be on the Blue Album, which you have right on the screen there, they're all going to come because the Pepper, Abbey Road, White Album, Let It Be, those have all been kind of remixed and re-released as super deluxe editions. So most of the material on that we've heard in the new style of the mixing and the technology.
Which I am personally a fan of the new style of mixing that they're using. The remixes I am really enjoying. Like, I've been listening to the remix of the White Album a lot lately.
I've listened to it on the way down.
The super deluxe of the White Album has been my recent favorite. Last year I listened to Abbey Road a lot.
Now, and Abbey Road, I don't hear much of a difference sonically in that.
No, because Abbey Road was later on, so they had sort of gotten a hand, I guess. The original mixing and mastering on Abbey Road was sort of later on in the stereo mixing.
And only stereo, as I mentioned.
Exactly.
So that album, I mean, you could listen to an original pressing of Abbey Road.
Yeah, and it sounds similar.
It's going to sound, the newer mixes sound a little more punchier.
Yeah.
They're a little more.
That's just a change in the style of the times.
Right. They're a little more punchier, a little more heavier in drums, a little more bass, which is kind of funny considering the two that are still alive played drums and bass.
Yeah.
And that's what we hear a little more prominent now in these remixes.
Not exactly surprised about that.
But it sounds good. You hear a song like Rain, right? Like, that's fantastic.
It's a great.
Last year, remember Revolver came out.
Yes.
We're talking about in class.
Revolver was great. That was a phenomenal release.
Right. That was fantastic.
We listened to that, I think, for a couple days straight, just listening to Revolver in class.
Non-stop. Like, ripped it, put it on, the whole nine. But the White Album has been a nice one to. So you're going to hear, that. So that is going to be all represented on the Blue Album, and now and then it's going to be tacked on at the end of the Blue Album. It'll be the last track on there.
Okay.
There's a couple of choices I kind of disagree with that they're putting on there to expand it. Like they're putting on Within You Without You, Sgt. Pepper. They put on I Want You, She's So Heavy from Abbey Road. I don't really agree with those two choices.
Because they're already released. They're already released on the Super Deluxe.
Well, they're already released, but they could have picked other songs.
Yeah.
I just think those songs don't flow well on that album. Especially I Want You, She's So Heavy. That's a deep album cut that works. Throwing it on that. You could have picked something. I know they added Hey Bulldog to the Blue Album, which I get. That song has grown in stature over the last 10 years. Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, sang it.
Great cover.
Yeah, great cover of that song. I get why Hey Bulldog was included. Within You Without You, I would say you could have ended it with Golden Slumbers. And then that'd
be great.
And then throw Now and Then on there.
Yeah.
If you want to expand it a little bit.
Exactly.
They threw Glass Onion on there from the White Album.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a time with that recent Netflix movie.
Yes. Yeah, so maybe that's what they're trying to do.
I guess because there was the one that was the movie that came out that was called Glass Onion. It was they had the song playing in it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they added
they're
it.
trying to, whatever. So, and then a lot of people I know in the Beatles world are like, well, why are we, if you're throwing Now and Then, which is a new Beatles song in 2023, why are we still calling the album 1967 and 1970? Wouldn't you call it to 2023? A lot of people have gotten a little bit, fired up about that. I really don't care. Do you?
Whatever. Nah. I mean, it's just exciting to hear new material. Like one of the things I liked the most about the Super Deluxes was hearing all of the alternate takes.
Yes, that's it's the main
different
draw.
Different little melodies that were changed slightly between that and the new take, or different rhythms, or different, even like, I forget what song it was, but one of them, the bass line's kind of different between them on Abbey Road Super Deluxe. I forget which track it was. But I was listening through that the other day, and I was like, oh, that bass line is ever so slightly different in an alternate take.
You hear an alternate take, but even things that are brought up in the master that are remixed. I've heard these songs thousands of times in my life.
Yeah.
I'm hearing when I listen to like the White Album, I'm hearing something
new things.
I'm hearing new things. And I had a conversation with another Beatle fan, over the weekend, and he was kind of on the fence about it. He's like, I'm not buying all this again. I've heard it. I said, dude, you're hearing nuances. If you like the Beatles as much as we do, and you hear new songs, new sounds in this music, you got to get it.
Exactly.
You got to get it.
I mean, you bought every single format of this already.
Just about. Just about. I lost out on the 10-inch Spotify exclusive thing on the Beatles.com.
It sold out, or
the 10-inch version.
Did it sell out? Or?
It's gone. It's gone. The Target Red I'll get in person in Target on Thursday.
Nice.
Done. No CD single release of this, which a lot of people are a little cheesed off about.
Is there a cassette release too? I'm assuming,
yes,
right?
There is. There is, and that kind of is cool because it
ties into the fact that it's coming from
it was a cassette.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Exactly.
And I know cassettes are back and people are selling them again. Have you bought any collecting, or are you like more? Older cassettes.
I get older cassettes because the record shop near me, and near us, Factory Records, they have tons of cassettes. Little plug for them, I guess.
Factory, we like them.
Yeah, they're a great record store.
Well, shout out to Sweet Vinyl too.
That too.
We love you too.
They have they have some good coffee.
And they have good coffee.
Smaller collection though.
Smaller collection, and, let's be honest, a little more expensive.
Yeah, but it's closer, so it's not as far of a drive.
It's not, but yeah, they have a pretty big inventory of cassettes.
They do, and I do have a Walkman. I have a Sony Walkman that I've had since I was as long as I can remember. Actually, it still works. I do have a couple cassettes actually. I have some empty cassettes that I've been recording stuff onto.
If you held a cassette up to 10 friends your age, would they know what that format is?
Probably not. I mean, given
what to do with it.
that's probably more accurate. How
do I play this thing?
Yeah. There was a kid in my IT class who did not know what an iPod was, so I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
An iPod Classic?
Yeah.
He didn't know what yeah.
Yeah, it's the times.
Man.
Spotify and streaming music has taken over.
Listen, and you know how my feelings on this.
Yes, I do.
The convenience of it, I think, is fantastic.
Oh, of course. You have everything in the world in your pocket.
Right.
It's great.
But when we've discussed this a lot.
Yeah.
On the go, fantastic.
Yeah.
Home, we're not doing that.
No.
Right?
Physical media all the way.
You're in the car, plug in and go.
That works.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
I still listen to CDs in the car because I have a bunch of CDs and my car that I had.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, the Kia Soul.
Rest in peace, the Kia. Thanks a lot, lady who rear-ended me.
Yeah. But that had a CD player, so I'd always listen to CDs in the car because I didn't want to connect my phone. But yes, I get on the go, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you use.
I just worry about the ability long term.
Exactly.
With the
archival,
with the convenience of that. If the goal is, say, for the Beatles, which is, let's face it, these are guys that are coming to the end of their life.
Yeah.
They've been gone for the group has not existed for over 50 years.
Exactly.
How? Like, I'm just looking at your screen right now. Okay, you've got Spotify up, and people know those songs because that's what's mostly streamed.
Yeah.
But will younger people be able to go to that and go, Revolver Super Deluxe, let me listen to that album?
Yeah.
Does the art of the album go away?
I think it's pretty much gone at this point because most people. Look at Peter Gabriel, right? His new album.
Yeah.
Everything's a single.
Right.
He's released every single song on that album as a single.
Right.
And so we're kind of coming to a point where albums as a whole aren't really a thing anymore, and artists are focusing more on releasing singles that get radio play or going out for awards or whatever, as opposed to making a whole experience as an album.
And that's the thing that's lost a little bit now. And EPs now are pretty popular too, right?
Exactly. Shorter albums.
And it's cheap, right? I get it.
Yeah.
If you're a struggling or a smaller artist, to get your music produced in a physical
expensive.
format, it costs a lot. I get it.
It does.
Especially vinyl. You know,
It's like $30 a vinyl, $30 a record at this point.
It's a lot. But okay, I mean, and it's changed so much. You know, the industry is so different. You're not making the money on album sales.
I mean,
but it just takes away there's something about listening to an album
start to finish.
Yeah. You know, even if you're going to do it digitally, you can still do it, but you wouldn't have, like, even if you had a CD or an album, when you locked in with that thing, it's an experience.
Yeah, it's something tangible that you can, like, sort of hold on to and be like, this is the music. This here, it's a physical representation of everything that you hold dear about an album. Say if there's an album that you, like, are so, like, passionate about, you can physically own it, and you don't have to worry about, oh, it's coming off of X streaming service, so I'm not going to have access to it. I own it. It's never going to go away. It'll always be there.
I think you've heard me say this in class many times. I'm like, if the internet's out, you're out. You got nothing.
You're done. Unless you have it downloaded, but...
Unless you have it downloaded, you know? And let's face it, most people don't have music collections like we have.
No.
That they're happy to stream it, and the convenience is great. And I even my own father, like, he gave me all his albums. He doesn't need them. He'll stream them. He doesn't need
same with my dad.
So, right?
Yeah, he doesn't need them.
I remember like last year, you told me you found a Yes album, a CD.
Oh yeah, I did.
Keys to Ascension. My dad.
Yeah,
had it.
I was like, I found it. I was looking for it, and I found it.
Right. So it's nice that people like your age appreciate it.
Yeah.
It gives me some hope for the future. That's a pun. That's a Paul song too.
Yeah, it is.
I'll look it up. You know, that there is a chance for people to embrace this stuff a little bit more, but still have the convenience of the technology to do it. And it's the fact that it's the Beatles still. I mean, to tie it back is pretty awesome. I mean, obviously they still reach people moving forward.
And, like, there's a lot of kids my age who do enjoy the Beatles, but I mean, they may not be as big as a fan of as you or even me or even some other people I know. But I mean,
there's only one of me, Dylan.
There is. That's for sure. But no, I do think they're still holding on as a very popular band, even with the younger generation.
They are, and I think, you know, you've seen my classroom. It's a setup. It's what we have set up to do. So it'll be cool. I mean, the documentary. There's a 12-minute documentary about the song.
That'll be fun to watch.
I know
I'll be watching it on my TV.
3:30 on Wednesday.
Yeah,
and on YouTube.
Yep.
And it's funny. I was thinking, like, you know how when songs get released 12:01, right?
Yep.
Not this one. You got to wait till 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Wow.
on Thursday.
Wow.
For it to drop.
Wow.
2 p.m. UK time.
Is it? Oh, so it's all the same time globally.
Correct.
Because I know, like, because recently one of my favorite artists, Jacob Collier, came out with a single for his new album coming out on the 29th of February, and he dropped the single at midnight at every time zone. So as soon as it became midnight, as soon as it became midnight in, like, New Zealand, it was like 9 a.m. the day before here. But since it was out in one country, it was out everywhere.
Oh,
basically.
Is that how we did it?
Yeah, because it was a kind of a rolling thing. So as soon as it was out in one place, it leaked and everyone got it.
And everybody got it.
So everyone kind of got it early.
I tell you what, there is nothing better than waking up sometimes and looking at my phone and going, new music is available from so-and-so. And I'm like, play.
Let's go.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's to my point earlier. That's the great thing about streaming.
Yeah.
Like, if you're waiting for the physical product to be
delivered, you have to wait till like 5 p.m. the next day for it to come in the mail.
Amazon. Where is it?
Track my
package. Track that thing. But then you can hear it and enjoy it. So again, you have to embrace the technology.
Exactly.
It's not going away. And I think that's the whole thing about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's good things and there's bad things.
For sure.
There's good things and bad things about both. It's a happy medium if you can reach it of both. Sort of have the plus sides of physical media of always owning it, and then the plus sides of the convenience factor of streaming.
Yeah,
it's always a great thing.
I know we've talked about this too. I think that there's the part of the things too is now not just the Beatles, but you know, there's so much. And I've told this to you, I think over the years. There's so many ways to access things now. There's so much, like you can with a click of a button, you could add the discographies of anybody you want.
Yes, anyone.
Back in the day, that was such a labor of love to get that. Now I'm talking about like Napster, Kazaa
exactly.
It was like, okay, you still had to download it. Now,
it's anything you want at any time.
Dylan, download all of King Crimson. Check it out.
And it's right there.
And that's so great. Yeah. But it's also overwhelming because there's so much to go through.
It's hard to find stuff because you're dealing with every single song that gets released. I think, I don't remember the exact stat, but it's like for every minute that passes, there's hours of content that gets uploaded to Spotify. It is impossible to ever listen to everything. Like it's a bottomless pit.
Right. So unless you were somebody who predates this era, and you actually went out to seek these things at the store, take them home, absorb them before this age of streaming, and learn the discographies, learn the running order of the tracks, and learn. Okay, there's this edition. Like I did that for all the bands that I like and collected. So I can do that and have that knowledge because I spent the time with them before. Now, if I was your age, I would be like, and I was into the music that I was into, I would be like, oh my God,
there's just too much.
There's too much. I'm never going to get through all of Yes or all of Genesis or all
of
the Who.
There's just so much.
Right? There's so much. But back then, you took your time with it. You went to the store, you bought the album, you bought the CD.
And it was an investment every time because they were expensive.
And they were the CDs cost $20.
Yeah.
You know, they cost 20 now. See how times have changed. The Now and Then single alone is going for $20.
Wow.
You know, just for a 7-inch or a 12-inch.
That's crazy,
right? So they know what they're doing.
Yeah, they know how much they can extract.
Exactly. So it's great. I just think there's so much out there that people are just like, I'll never get to it all.
Yeah,
yourself included.
Yeah, I mean, I know for a fact I'm never going to be able to get through all of the music that predates me, plus the stuff that I'm listening to that's coming out now.
Plus whatever you like now.
Yeah, because
I'm not trying to say that I don't like current music. There's a few artists that I like.
Yeah.
That are somewhat modern. I like them. You know,
of course.
What's it called? The Weeknd. I like some of his stuff.
Yeah, he's got good stuff.
It's retro. I like that. But you're never gonna have enough time. If I'm still discovering music that came out 50 years ago, then the younger generation has. I mean, they're gonna be so overwhelmed with it.
Yeah,
and
it's a shame. I mean, because there's so much great music out there.
There is. I mean, just to tie a little bit off the Beatles, but I mean, in 2021. I was driving around and had Sirius. I have Sirius. I'm a subscriber, and I heard a deep track by a band called Procol Harum. Up to that point, I knew 3 songs by the band. I heard that song, and I'm like, I have to have everything by this band.
Yeah.
And I went out and got it.
Yeah.
Music that's 50 years old.
Yeah.
That I just discovered.
Yeah.
That I just discovered.
Yep.
In 2021.
Which is once again another great thing about streaming. You can always discover more.
Correct.
It's easier to discover.
You can. So I mean, we talk about rabbit holes. I mean,
all the time.
All the time.
It's
You'd be like, Nicholes, I'm down this rabbit hole. I'm down this rabbit hole. I'm like, all right, buddy, I'll join you. Hold on. Whoop, look out.
There it goes.
It all depends on your mood.
Yep.
What you're into. What are you excited about?
Yep.
I know you're Jacob Collier. You got those albums coming out.
Yeah, that's a big event. Looking forward to. I mean, I'll probably be streaming that the day it comes out on whatever show I do next semester. That when I pre-ordered those vinyls, so those will get played. Vinyls.
No.
Oh,
vinyl.
Plural is vinyl.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. We don't say vinyls.
Sorry.
It's like those TV wonders that say filmer.
Oh, yes.
We don't say filmer.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. But yeah, no, but again, like I bet you he's a smaller artist, right? So he has to pay probably a lot to get his stuff pressed on vinyl. Listen, the Beatles are the biggest thing ever.
Yeah.
And there's still a delay with their stuff. And Jacob Collier.
There's nothing you can do because it's just vinyls. It's the nature of the format. It's physical. It's sort of fragile. It's a big thing.
And there's such a demand for it.
Yeah.
It's supply and demand. Like those Red and Blue albums that I ordered, that I pre-ordered, I don't think I'm getting them till December.
Wow.
Right? So they'll be on streaming on November 10th.
Yeah, but it's going to take some time.
I'm not going to get those till probably Christmas time.
Because I had to pre-order my vinyl for the February 29th launch 2-3 weeks ago just so it would get there in time. Just so it would get here in time. Yeah, because they're pre-pressing it and it's going to get here on the day of the launch. But I had to order it several months in advance, so I'm looking forward to that. That's a whole other discussion for another time.
No, but it's good. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy playing vinyl at home. I don't get a whole lot of time to do it, but when I do, on a weekend, I'll lock in, and then the week will go by, and then I'll go on a Saturday. I'll go, oh, that's the album I had on there last Sunday, and it's still there. So it's a nice part to just lock in.
Yeah, listen to an album.
Listen to it. I mean, and then as we all did during COVID.
Yep.
That's what we did. In fact,
exactly.
I just had experiments where I would just take albums and rip them.
Yep.
And just have a little fun with it. Just to with my turntable, I have pitch control.
Yeah, and just tune them down.
And just detune it a little bit.
Yeah.
Some turntables, depending on how they're manufactured, they might play too fast.
Yeah.
So you have a little fun with that. So I would using Audacity.
Yeah.
I would put a Beatles record on and I would rip them all. They put them into Audacity, split them up, retitle them, and then call them Nicholes mixes. And I added them to my library.
Yeah. And you sent me those too. I've listened to those. Yeah.
That's right. I think you added them.
I did add them to my collection. Yeah.
Yes, you did.
And speaking of Beatles vinyl, we have a couple of vinyl here that we're going to play for you today because we do have a little bit of time.
We do.
Where should we start?
Well, Dylan's holding a 1995 pressing of the White Album, and you can't see it, but it's not a beater-upper. It's from '95 when they reissued them on the Apple Cream labels. You pick. It's your show.
All right, I'm gonna start with side one.
You want to go with side one?
Yeah, let's start with side one.
Go with side one, man. Back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, Glass Onion, Obla Di Obla Da, Wild Honey Pie, Bungalow Bill, and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. For those of you keeping score at home, with side one. Can't guarantee it's not gonna skip. It shouldn't. I did clean it up a little bit today. It's you know, I didn't go into the archives and pull out, you know, the 30 that I have sitting at home. I could have, and you know I have them. Side one. Go with it. Ah, there's the hiss.
Yeah, it should just take a few seconds and it should come through.
There we go. Before the strains of Dear Prudence, yeah. Back in the USSR, Paul McCartney's Beach Boys influenced opener.
I mean, I'm a fan of the Beach Boys. I'm a big fan of the Beach Boys, actually.
Yeah, same.
And to the point we were talking earlier about the mono stereo stuff. I mean, that's the huge thing with Beach Boys.
Especially Pet Sounds.
Yeah, exactly. Pet Sounds, which is my favorite, up there on my list of favorite albums of all time.
Yes.
I think for a lot of people, it's up there too.
A lot of people, but some people can't vibe with that album. They don't.
Which is always surprising.
I'll never understand that.
A lot of those songs are just like total classics.
Now I'll tell you, I know that album was prepared for mono, right?
Yeah.
Brian Wilson had any, you know, you couldn't really
hear in the other
ear. I actually prefer the stereo remix of that album.
Yeah, I like the remixes a lot.
Isn't it better?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, the mono is great because that's how it was issued, but the separation of the vocals that you hear on a song, say like "You Still Believe in Me," on Pet Sounds stereo, night and day.
So good. The separation is great.
But yeah, back in the USSR, to open it up, as George Martin, their producer, liked to say, he liked to open up all their albums with a pot boiler.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, Ukraine Girls, and of course that was written while the Beatles were in Rishikesh in February of '68. Yeah. And Mike Love of the Beach Boys was with them. Yeah. While they were kind of studying transcendental meditation, and their manager had just died a few months before. They had kind of figured out what are we going to do. Early '68, you know, they had recorded a couple of tracks before they left, namely Lady Madonna and Across the Universe and The Inner Light. Got those ready, and then went to India and recorded all these songs. I mean, all the songs on the White Album were all done in India.
Didn't know that. All of them were recorded in India. Wow.
Yeah, and if the 2018 box set has that bonus disc of the Esher demos.
Yeah.
So they went. They wrote all those. So they wrote all those songs in India. Came back to England and demoed them at George's house. Okay. So if you listen to that super deluxe edition of the White Album, the third disc is just all the Esher demos.
Are those the demos that were recorded in India?
No, nothing was recorded in India because they couldn't.
Okay, but everything was like
they wrote
in India.
They wrote back in the USSR. They wrote Dear Prudence. 95% of what's on the White Album was all written while the Beatles were just away in India, just with their guitars. Yeah. So that's why if you listen to an album like the White Album, a lot of it has that kind of acoustic back to basics feel. Yeah. Because remember, music was changing here, right? In '67, Summer of Love, psychedelic stuff. Right?
Yeah.
Pepper
is
Magical Mystery Tour, great stuff. And then there's a sudden shift in the musical landscape where kind of a back to basics approach comes into things here. Yeah. With the band, right? And music from Big Pink. And George was spending a lot of time with the band and Bob Dylan. So like they kind of were like, okay, we're gonna get off that psychedelic train and we're gonna just go back to basics. And that's kind of a lot. Even though the White Album, it's my favorite album because it is so diverse. You've got things like Savoy Truffle and Martha My Dear.
It's a big album.
30 tracks.
Yeah, it's a long one. Is it the longest mainstream album? Main album?
Out of the canon?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's almost 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's a long one.
It's 30 tracks. And of course you've got Revolution 9, which is this kind of experimental avant-garde thing with John and Yoko. Which isn't, I mean, it's interesting, but it's not really good. So, like, that was done, obviously, not in India, right? Yeah. They did that when they came back. Yeah. But, like, obviously, like, Piggies and Blackbird and Rocky Raccoon and Mother Nature's Son, Dear Prudence, the next track on the album. That's what you hear. That's all written when they were in India.
Speaking of Dear Prudence, that's going to be the next track we play.
Yeah, written about Prudence Farrow, Mia Farrow's sister, because she wouldn't come out of her little hut in India. So John said, why don't you come out to play? Which is a true story. You almost had it.
Almost. I almost missed it.
You almost had it. Great track.
Here's Dear Prudence.
And there was Dear Prudence, written by John Lennon, and February of '68. That's always a key track from the White Album, which
Yeah.
is included on the expanded Red and Blue.
Is it? Which one is it on?
No, it's going to be on the Blue.
Okay, it's gonna be on Blue.
It's
okay.
going to be on Blue. That's one of the ones they've added.
Got it. Okay.
Like it wasn't originally on
Yeah.
Blue, but now it's going to be on the Blue.
They're gonna put the Super Deluxe remix on it.
Correct.
Okay.
Also, anything like that is going to be the newer mixes
Got it.
from all those recent box
Okay.
sets and remix. I mean, Dylan's playing a 1995 pressing of the White
So
Album,
it's-
so
yeah.
honestly, it's not as much, but the dynamic is not there. But
Yeah.
you'll hear it on when it comes out again
Yeah.
on the 10th. But yeah, that's all that stuff. It just sounds so much punchier and
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
So you got another album there, right?
I do. We do have another album here. Well, actually, we were gonna play one more track off of this.
Oh yeah,
right.
we'll do one more on the White Album.
We'll do one more on the White
One
Album.
more on the White Album, yeah.
We'll do "Happiness Is a Warm Gun."
Happiness is a Warm Gun. Really, this is a wacky one. And John Lennon got the title and the inspiration for this because it was an article in a gun magazine, oddly enough, which is just kind of
out there for him. Yeah.
And considering the headline of the article was "Happiness is a Warm Gun in Your Hand." It's a pro-gun article.
Yeah.
And that's where the title came from for this track.
Yeah.
It's nothing at all about guns when you listen to the song, but it's interesting. You know, I think it also marks the first appearance of Yoko Ono's vocals on a Beatles recording as well, and you'll hear it when Dylan plays
exactly.
it. But it's a different kind of song. You know, it starts off as a slow ballad.
Yeah.
You know, then builds up into this big thing,
Yep.
and all this kind of 50s bang bang shoot vocals at the end of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a 3-minute little mini opera.
Got it.
You know, it starts as a little slow thing, and then builds up into a rockier piece.
Has its own like little arc.
You know, I got to fix, and I'm going down.
Yeah.
And this big heavy, and then this big happy, and a big screaming. You know, high pitched
lot of
falsetto
dynamic.
vocals. Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of it on this track. But yeah, Happiness is a Warm Gun. Cue it up, buddy.
I will.
End of side 1.
Yes.
Of the White Album. Good pick there, Dylan.
Thank you. All right, so now we're gonna move on to Let It Be.
No. See.
Oh yeah, here it goes.
We need to put you back into Beatles School 101. Dylan is holding a copy of the 1970 U.S. only compilation, Hey Jude. Okay, this was not a main canon album. It was released exclusively to the U.S. Again by Alan Klein for the Beatles to make a lot of money. Honestly, because they were hemorrhaging money at the time, and they needed product. They needed cash in there, and Alan Klein and the Beatles came up with an idea to take tracks that had been singles or not on a Capitol album and throw them on an album. So you had things like Paperback Writer, Rain, Hey Jude, Lady Madonna, all on an album for the first time because they were all singles before that. So we are going to start. So it's a really cool compilation. It's the U.S. only, sold very well. It came out, I believe, in January of 1970.
I mean, it's a good collection of tracks.
Yeah, but there's some oddball stuff too. Like
Yeah.
I Should Have Known Better is on there from
Yeah.
Hard Day's Night because it never was on a Capitol album. It was released on United Artists as the soundtrack to Hard Day's Night. So there's little hodgepodgey tracks on here that make their appearance on an EMI owned album. And that's why there's oddball songs like that. It's obviously Don't Let Me Down, Ballad of John and Yoko. They're only singles. Now they're on an album for the first time. And that was a big seller. I mean, a lot of big Beatle fans love this one. So we're kicking it off with Hey Jude.
Hey Jude, yeah.
We know it well. Paul wrote it for Julian because he was, his parents were getting divorced at the time. And only the Beatles could do 7 minutes and 7 seconds in 1968 when nobody else was playing it. But they did it. And there it is. All 7 minutes and change of Hey Jude. No matter how many times you hear it, you can't get tired of it.
No, it's such a great song.
You just can't get tired of it. Funny story with that is when my dad heard this song in 1968, and my uncle says to my dad, "Hey, I just heard the new Beatles single, and guess what? It sucks." And my dad goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I got in the car, and all I heard for 4 minutes was nah, 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 nah." My dad's like, "You didn't hear the whole thing."
No, not even close. It's the whole start.
Right. So that's a funny little story about that.
That's a great anecdote.
But, great.
And I think we're coming close to time here. We have a couple of minutes left.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on.
Of course.
When we booked this a few weeks ago, the announcement for Now and Then
hadn't even come out.
Hadn't come out yet. We didn't know when it was going to come out.
Perfect timing, almost.
Even though we were thinking about
a couple days early.
I said, "Oh, have me on for a Yes show," and you're like, "Nicholes, I got to have you on for a Beatles show," which I get.
You're the Beatles guy.
I am, and I appreciate it. And hey, listen, having spent 2 years of my life there, I get it.
Yeah.
No, it's just we were just saying off the air, life moves so fast.
It does.
And everything that we talked about in class and what we're doing, you're doing now.
Yeah.
You're doing what you want to do, and I'm just very proud of you, and I'm so thankful
Thank
that you brought me down here.
And thank you for coming on. I mean, this has been a great show. I hope people out there who are listening are enjoying it.
It might even be a bonus 2 legs episode. Maybe we'll see. I got to talk to my co-host about that.
Got it. Okay.
If you're okay with it.
I'm fine with that.
Maybe it might be a bonus episode. We'll see.
Sounds good.
We'll see.
But I'll send you the files then.
Please do. It's I'm happy to come on again whenever you need. I'm only 20 minutes away, and we can either do more Beatles, we can do more prog, more whatever.
I mean, I might have to have you on for the Yes Redux episode, pending announcement about when that will be.
Yeah, because you have a buddy also who is into Yes. You need to slot yourself some time for that show.
That'll be another hour episode.
If we play a Yes song, or
that's going to be a long one. Yeah,
that's a whole hour.
We may have to find a different time slot and sort of do a special.
We might have to. I mean, especially if we're gonna play Tales.
Yeah, exactly.
We play Tales.
A Tales episode could be kind of cool on a Saturday or something when there's no other episode.
An album
going on.
That might be an album also celebrating its 50th anniversary this year.
That's coming up soon. That could be a nice episode to do.
It could. But yeah, in the Beatles world, very exciting times.
Very exciting.
I hope people out there give it a shot and listen to it and accept it for what it is. You know, it's the last moment that the Beatles will ever have together on record as they're coming kind of to the end of their days, and to hear all the love and care and passion and joy that they bring to people. I hope that's what we hear with this song.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit biased, just a little bit.
Just a little.
A little bit, but I think it's going to be great, and I look forward to talking with you about it.
Of course, yeah. We'll have to keep in touch about that when it drops.
I think we will.
But thank you once again for coming on. Once again, plug your podcast.
Yes, yeah, 2 Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. On YouTube,
Spotify,
and everything. Yeah, 2 Legs, the number 2 Legs. Me and my co-host Tom Hunyadi, where it's 99% all just Paul Solo.
Yeah.
Which we like, just as a side note, just because there's so much
there's so
much Beatles content everywhere.
Yeah.
We thought, well,
something different.
We got to just talk about Paul's solo career.
Yeah.
And we do it once a week.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. Everyone, please check it out.
Yeah, like and sub when we're doing really well. So thanks for the plug.
Of course.
And once again, thanks for having me on today.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.